Welcome to City Church's On Demand Messages. My name is Josh, and we're so glad you're tuning in whenever and wherever you're tuning in from. In fact, if it's your first time, we'd love to connect with you. You can text NEW to the number on the screen right now. We've got a free gift for you. Also, if you need prayer, we would love to pray with you. We believe that prayer is not our last resort, but it is our first response to what is going on in our lives and the lives of those around us. And so we'd love to join in with you. And so you can text next to the number on the screen. Also, if you'd like to invest financially into the mission of City Church to be a Jesus movement that awakens the soul in the city, you can text next as well to the number on the screen. We believe every Sunday morning when we gather in person and online, and we open up God's Word, that He has something special and specific for every one of us. And so as we lean into this week's message that you're about to watch, we pray that God opens up your heart to whatever He has for you, and we hope that you are encouraged by today's message. Again, if we can do anything for you, please let us know.
My name is Warren, and one of the pastors here, and I'm just so thankful to get the opportunity just to share what God has put in my heart, to share His Word this morning. And we've been in a series called Until, and Josh, the last couple weeks, has just unfolded this heart until Griffin looks like heaven. In our first week, he talked about to give until Griffin looks like heaven. And the last week, he was up here, and he talked about to be light until Griffin looks like heaven. As we move to today, I just want to imagine for a second, if you would just imagine this for a moment. You don't have to close your eyes or anything, but you flip on the TV, right? Something that most of us do every day at some point, at least somewhere in the week even, we flip the TV on. So I want you to imagine you flip your TV on, and there on the TV sits a panel and a mediator. The panel is introduced to everyone that is watching, and they seem to be defined as the very people that the church says they want to reach. They're people that don't claim the name of Jesus, they don't follow Jesus, and there on the TV, you begin to notice, and you're surprised, the panel is full of people you see every day. There on the panel is your neighbor who lives next door. There on the panel is your coworker and your boss, and the lady that you see at the gas station every week. They're all great people, but they have something in common. They don't know Jesus. And so the mediator is having conversation with the panel, and the mediator says this: do you hear more from the church, or do you see more from the church? Confused, the panelists respond back and say, we're not really sure that we understand the question. Do you hear more from the church, or do you see more from the church? The mediator explains that when it comes to the church and what they claim, do you catch yourself only hearing about it from them, or do you see it from them? You can't help but think that they've seen you in your City Church shirt at some point, like coming and going. At some point, you've wore that shirt, and they're getting asked this question, and you're wondering, what are they going to see? You sit on the edge of your seat, hoping that they don't mention your name. One of them speaks up. And with a little bit of gusto, he says, what? What would he say? What would she say? Do they see more? Do they just hear? For those of you that are here this morning, maybe you're the person that's sitting on that panel. You don't believe in Jesus, but for some reason you came here today. I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for being here, but I ask you the question, if you're even the person on the panel, maybe you're the neighbor, the coworker here today, and you don't believe in Jesus, would it be just for a moment odd to think, what would you say? Would it be what we hope as a church, or would it be stories of hurt and disbelief and stories of hypocrisy? Let's all be up front, church, and be honest for a moment that it's easy for the church to be known for what they say and less about what they do. Right? It's easy. It's easy to go through the news. It's easy to go through storylines, and this is what the church is saying, and even what they say and what they do, they just don't line up. They're known for what they're against and not what they're for, and sometimes what the church does seems off from what Jesus claims himself to be. It can be confusing sometimes to people around us. That what they hear and what they see, they don't line up. What they expect and what they're actually given just don't seem to fall together in line. So last week, Josh talked about our call to be light. And he talked about this verse in the book of Matthew chapter 5, verse 16, and you'll see it on the screen. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 16, the verse ends with this. And so Josh talked about being this light. It says, in the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. So today we want to move further in this Until series, and this is where we're going to land today, that we want to serve until Griffin looks like heaven. Serve until Griffin looks like heaven, right? Every week we've talked about that there's 20,000 people here in the city of Griffin, almost 20,000 people that don't name the name of Jesus as their Savior, that don't claim, that are unchurched. And so we said, until Griffin looks like heaven. So that means we will not stop until this happens. So this week we talk about to serve until Griffin looks like heaven. So what does that mean? So this verse that we have, it gives us kind of a roadmap to what this might possibly look like. At some point maybe in your life, you've heard someone say in some sort of fashion, do you just talk the talk, or do you walk the talk? Have you ever heard that before? Like, are you just someone that just talks the talk, or are you someone that actually walks the talk? Someone told me one time, let's see if I can get this right, does your talk louder than your talk talks, or does your walk louder than your talk talks? That's a lot, basically, to say, like, when you walk, is it actually supporting what you talk? Right? Because here's the thing that we have to understand. If we're going to serve until Griffin looks like heaven, as we talk about being light, it has to just go out of this space, and we have to begin to serve. And so as we think about this, does our walk actually line up with our talk? If we take this and place it on the image of the church, it's very applicable. Is your life as a follower of Jesus simply in word or also in action and deeds? Is our church's life in our community here on a Sunday as well, is it filled only with words, or is it also filled with action, with deeds? And so in the book of Matthew chapter 5 and verse 16, we find this word, good deeds. Let your light shine so that others may see your good deeds. And then we find this other word that sits in this passage, and that word is glorify. Glorify. So let them see good deeds so that it may glorify your Father in heaven. There's something really unique about this word glorify. A lot of times, right, we see the word glorify and we think about praise and we think about, this honor that is given. But what we have to notice about this passage is it talks about people seeing light, right? And in this passage, it's not just talking about the people that are believers. It's talking about those that are around us. So someone who doesn't believe in Jesus, right, they're not going to be like, okay, yeah, I see your good works. Praise God. They're going to say, okay, what is this? And so this word translates in its original context to think towards. That they may think towards, they may put their mind towards, they may cause this commotion in their heart and their emotions. They might to think towards your Father in heaven. So as we put these two things together, as we put these good deeds, we put this word glorify together, and we move them into a space, here's what we understand. The way I serve can move someone towards Jesus. So my good deeds move people to glorify. They move people towards Jesus. At the beginning of today in the host piece, they asked the question, what would your neighbor say about you? I've got to share later on a story of what my neighbor actually said about me. And it's very intriguing. Even as I worked through this message and I worked through this time, I kept thinking back to that moment. I kept thinking back to, is this really what I once said about me, someone who claims to follow Jesus? Because the way I serve can move someone towards Jesus, or the actions I present can move someone away as well. I'm thankful today that as we think about serving, and we think about serving on a Sunday, we think about serving in our community, we think about the places that we serve in our neighborhoods, I'm thankful today to say that I believe that City Church is blessed with so many incredible people. So many incredible city builders. If you're new with this, we call volunteers here city builders, because we believe that you're giving up more than just your time, and that it's just more than just that moment, but you're actually helping us build up. You're helping us reach people. And so I'm blessed to think about the people that sit in this room and the way that you serve in our community and the way that you serve on Sundays, the way that you serve each other. As a matter of fact, as we think about weather, we go back a few months ago, right, January 12th, we have 5 tornadoes hit the city of Griffin, and within moments, so we're sitting in the room Thursday night at the Georgia Emergency Management Office, Josh and I, and they're asking the question, where can we put a distribution center to help meet the needs, receive goods, and then distribute those goods to our community? And the next That next day, we say, okay, this is where we're going to do it. It's in our future building downtown on the corner of 5th and Solomon. And that Saturday, we just put out a text. Hey, this is what's happening. We've got to get the building cleaned up. And within hours, many of you showed up, and that place was ready to go. So much that by Sunday, they told us we wouldn't be ready to take things in until Tuesday. But by Sunday, we were receiving things, and by Monday, we were distributing things. And with your servant heart, we were able to move over 1 million pounds of goods, and we were able to serve 10,000 members in households here in our community. That's the incredible heart of people that we have here in our community, in City Church. And you do it on Sunday mornings. You're serving coffee. You're on the tech team. You're serving in City Kids. Can we give a big just shout out and welcome, like to our welcome team who's just been out there? Some of you, yeah. Some of you like me on a rainy day and you're like, oh, stink, I don't have an umbrella. Like, I don't. And then the welcome team shows up and you're like, look at God. Like, look at how this happens. Like, I just want to reiterate, man, we are so thankful to see how each of you just serve in so many spaces. But the thing that we have to understand, right, as we think about the series is that we will serve until Griffin looks like heaven. We are here for that. So I think the thing we have to understand and the place that we have to watch out for is that we cannot get trapped in complacency towards our community. Let us not get lost in what we want and miss what our community needs. Let us not be said that we talk it, but we don't walk it. Because let's be honest, that's not difficult. It's not difficult for us to move to a church that says, okay, this is who we are. We stay together. We do things here. We don't do things elsewhere. Or even us personally, like let's make it personally. It's easy for us just to come here and I sit on a Sunday and I leave. And that's the end of my life when it comes to serving. It's easy for us to do. So easy that we find a story in the book of Luke chapter 10, and this is kind of where we'll stay the rest of the morning. So you're welcome to follow me on the screen. You're welcome to get your Bible app out on your phone. You're welcome to turn in your Bible. But in the book of Luke chapter 10, we kind of see this picture of how it can quickly become a space that we move into when we forget what we've been called to do and how we serve. And so in Luke chapter 10, Jesus is surrounded by religious leaders, and there's this lawyer in the group. And so this lawyer kind of is doing lawyer things. If we have any lawyers in here, this is not a personal attack on your job, but you're a lawyer, right? You have abilities to move around conversations and to get things out of people. It's your job. It's what you do. And so the lawyer is trying to do this to Jesus. He's working his way through and asking questions, hoping he can find a way for Jesus to fold. And so in Luke chapter 10, in verse 25 through 37, this is what we find. And behold, a lawyer stood up to put him to test, saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit life? He said to him, what is written in the law? This is Jesus saying back to him, how do you read it? So Jesus is kind of turning things around. And he answered, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And in verse 28, he said to him, you have answered correctly. Jesus said, you've answered correctly. Do this and you will live. But here's his response. The lawyer responds, he says, and he's desiring to justify himself, he said to Jesus, and who is my neighbor? Like, just ask that question. What do you think about that? If you were to ask the question and you were to put that in your own mind, in your own heart, who is your neighbor? Like, who do you think about when we say, what does your neighbor think about you? What would your neighbor do to describe you? What are the words who is the person that you see right now in your concept of neighbor? Because here's the thing, we all live in different spaces and places. Some of you live in spaces where you don't have a neighbor. Like you just are surrounded, the trees are your neighbor, right? Some of you live in spaces where someone is just right next to you and they hear everything that you say, right? So we have to move into a space where we understand our neighbor really is. And so that's what this story helps us see. And what's so funny about this question that the lawyer presents back, and who is my neighbor? It was his way of saying, yeah, but like, how do I get out of this? Because I'm good with the love God part with all my heart, soul, strength, mind, but this whole love the neighbor thing, like who is this? Because I don't know, like depending on the person, I'm not really sure that we can make this happen. And so Jesus replied, and he begins to tell a story. In verse 30, Jesus replied, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. So as we think about those that are in the room, these religious leaders, these Jews that are sitting in that space, and we imagine for a second, as Jesus tells a story, he's telling a story they can relate to. So this is a road from Jerusalem to Jericho. It's a road they would know. It's a narrow road, the width of what we would maybe know as one car. And as we read this story, let's imagine and let's even look at ourselves in this story. So verse 31, Jesus continues. So the man is robbed, he's beaten, he's left by the side of the road. And verse 31, now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So Jesus, again, he's talking to two people that are, he just named, priests, religious leaders, and they're listening to this, and he is basically, like, geez, could you imagine? Have you ever been in a room before and someone's calling you out without calling you out? You've been there before, right? Well, yeah, you know, there's this guy, he's, he doesn't have any hair, he has a little bit of facial hair, and he wears black jeans all the time. He's that guy. That guy, man, he's weird. And you're standing there and you're like, dude, that's me. You're talking about me. Like, people find these ways. But Jesus in this moment is doing this for a reason. Here stands the priest. Here stands the religious leaders. And he's saying, hey, this priest sees this man on the side of the road. And instead of approaching him to see how he is, to help him, they not only just pass by him, but they go as far to go out of the way, to pass by on the other side. I have this question for us as we think about this and we think about where we are in the story. Let's think about where the church is even in this story. How many times have we, and some of you sit in this room and you've been the person that's been beaten and robbed and you lay on the side of the road and you've watched as the church went all the way around you to avoid you. And so here Jesus stands in front of these men who say they love God and women love God, love others. And Jesus saying, no, this is what you actually do. To make it deeper, Jesus again uses a religious person. He says, so likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, he passed by on the other side. So again, someone who's religious, someone who would claim God. The Levites were the water boys to the priest. They knew the Bible in and out, but didn't have the same responsibilities as a priest. And his heart was also revealed with no action. I think it's important for us to understand this. You see, even doing nothing reveals something about your heart. Like, I don't know about you, so blessed to be raised in the church. And my dad's a pastor, and my parents are just absolutely incredible people that love me. But there was moments growing up in the church that I felt like as long as I just did what was right, that I was doing good. But see, according to this passage, right, we have these religious leaders, these rules that they're doing some things right, but in their doing nothing, they're saying something about their heart. They're revealing something, and they're passing around. They're revealing something about their heart. In verse 33, we find someone step in to help this man. Verse 33, but a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. We find Jesus moves from two people who are religious to a Samaritan. And so maybe you have the question that I had in the beginning of time as I was looking at the story. Like, okay, cool. What does it mean that this Samaritan stopped? Like, why would Jesus use this person in specific? Why would he choose a Samaritan? You see, in this time in history, the Jews and the Samaritans, they hated each other. They didn't talk to each other. So there was no reason for Jesus to bring this to point. Like, okay, you talked about Jews who were religious leaders in the beginning. Why are you going to a Samaritan? Why would you choose, Jesus, to pick someone who wants nothing to do with a man who's been robbed who's a Jew, who would actually stop and have compassion for this person? You see, I think Jesus is trying to answer the question that the lawyer presented, who is my neighbor? Because I think maybe some of us, right, we would imagine when we say, who is our neighbor, we would imagine the person that we have everything in common with, the person we like being around, the person that likes being around us, the person who loves the same music as us, the person possibly the same race as us, the person who likes the same foods as us. We would say, my neighbor is someone who has something in common with me. But Jesus breaks the barrier and says, no, your neighbor is anyone you come across who needs compassion. Even if you disagree. even if you're polar opposites. You see, we serve because our call is to be compassionate. Jews hated Samaritans. Samaritans didn't get along with Jews. In this passage, Jesus chose the wrong person in their eyes to do the right thing. The religious leaders felt their neighbor was someone who was close and someone who was common, someone who I actually could love. Okay, Jesus, you say love your neighbor. Okay, I can put a list of like 10 people, and those I will circle as my neighbor. We continue to see what the Samaritan does for this man. In verse 34, he went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. Notice the details that Jesus takes in this passage. Jesus doesn't say, okay, he stopped and helped him. End of story. Jesus goes deep. He bandaged his wounds, probably even using his own clothing. The oil and wine that he used were an intricate part of the temple worship, but Jesus says, no, this is a place for it, to care for someone, to care for wounds. He put his on his own donkey. He didn't just put a coin in his cup and walk by and say, hey, good luck. Man, serving is seeing a need and meeting that need with what you have. Man, so let's think about our neighbor. Let's think about that person, those people on that panel. What is God calling you to do? How is he calling you to serve? 2 weeks ago, we talked about giving until Griffin looks like heaven, but what about your time and your talents? What about the things that God has gifted you with, your talents? What about the time that you have? How are you using that to serve until Griffin looks like heaven? Verse 35, and the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. So this is the Good Samaritan again with the man who was beaten. And he says to the innkeeper, take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will pay you when I come back. He serves and gives sacrificially. So Jesus finishes his story, and I can only imagine that the priests and Levites and the religious people and the lawyers sitting there puzzled, trying to figure out why Jesus would make this aim at them. And I love what Jesus does here. He doesn't say, all right, guys, I bet you really understand it now. He asks them if they do. And listen to what happens. In verse 36, which of these 3 do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers? So Jesus poses this question to them standing there, and this is what the lawyer responds with. The one who showed him mercy. It's so crazy to me that they didn't like Samaritans so much that they wouldn't even say Samaritan. The one. You see, being someone who serves our neighbor, it's about this piece right here. Showed him mercy. Giving someone something that maybe in the moment you don't understand, they don't deserve. And then Jesus responds and he says, you go and do likewise. Okay, guys, religious leaders, priests, lawyer, you got it, you understand it. Now go and do likewise. Go and do the same. You know, now do. This is where we can get caught up, I think. We can focus so much on what we don't do that we forget what we're supposed to do. I don't know if you've been in this space before, but I've been in a life of comparison before where I've said like, well, at least I don't do that. I may have some things, but at least I don't do that. But Jesus is saying, no, this is what you've been called to do. It's not just about what you don't do, but it also is about what you do. And so in the book of James, I think we find this just brought so clearly together where James talks about faith and action. And he gives this summarization in the book of James chapter 4 and verse 17. And this is what he says. So whoever, and he's talking to believers here. So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin. This changes the game, right? This isn't just for whoever knows the things they're not supposed to do and they don't do them, hooray. No, this says if you know you're supposed to do it and you don't do it, you make a decision not to do something that the Spirit is calling you to do. Guess what that is? It's sin. So as you think about your neighbor and the way that you pass them by in the workspace, in the grocery store, when you think about anyone, and I want to ask you for just the sake of just knowing, has there been a place just in the past week where something inside you said, serve? To the follower of Jesus, has there been a space this week where you were passing by someone and it was serve? You see, because serving Griffin until it looks like heaven is not just only movie in the park. It's not just the ice cream truck. It's not just Sunday mornings. It's not just Orrs Elementary. Serving is where you are every day in every space. It's when you pass the mom at the store who's fumbling through, trying to figure out how she's going to take care of groceries. It's the coworker who you can just tell is down and out, who just needs someone to bring them a cookie because a cookie makes everything better, and a cold Coca-Cola. It's the family member who's confused and lost. It's the place in Moving the Park where we get to serve our community. It's the 500 middle school kids that we gave ice cream to on Thursday. Man, serve until Griffin looks like heaven. Let us not pass by. Let us not move around, because if we just move into a space where we're just trying to avoid doing the wrong things, we can miss out on what God's trying to do. Because here's the thing, it doesn't matter how much you know if you don't do. You can know it all. You can know it all and still fall short. I can know it all, but I can still miss where God is calling me to do something. For the most part, no one around you is, I don't want to say that it's going to be no one, but your neighbors that are around you, I can pretty much make a guarantee that no one around you is going to come to Jesus because you say you believe in him. They're not going to say, well, you believe in Jesus, so I'm going to. No, it's going to be because you serve like Jesus, because you love like Jesus. So let's take this story that we've read today as we see this Samaritan, the Good Samaritan, stop, and let's take our question, what would your neighbor say about you? And let's apply it to where we are. The first two passerbys, they knew, but they did not do. The last didn't define his neighbor as his similar, but as someone who needed to be served. The story is an implicit invitation from Jesus. And so I ask you this morning, who are you in this story? As your neighbor waits desperately by the side of the road, who are you? Find yourself in this story. And maybe today you're here and you're the person who was robbed. Maybe you're the person this morning that doesn't know Jesus. Maybe you're the person this morning that's hurting and you feel beat up and you feel beat down. You've lost your job. There's relational loss. You're fearful. You have anxiety. I've got nothing to give right now. You showed up today hoping that someone would step in and help today. Man, can I introduce you to a room full of Good Samaritans this morning? People that would love to stop, to be near you, to serve you. This church is full of it. This morning, are you a follower of Jesus? And you would say today, you know what, if I'm honest with myself, I'm a passerby. That when I get home and I see my neighbor in the front yard, I do all that I can to get in the house as quick as possible with my head down in my phone so that they don't see me like coming into the house while I cover up my City Church t-shirt, hoping they don't catch me. Today, are you the Good Samaritan? And I would say to you, continue to move forward, continue to go, and let's serve until Griffin looks like heaven. So, the TV's on. There's your neighbors, your coworker, your neighbor across the street, the lady you see every week at the gas station, your boss. And the question's asked, do you see more from the church, or do you just hear more? And you're on the edge of your seat and you're waiting. About a year ago, as I closed this morning, I was talking to a friend who was my neighbor, and now we had a new neighbor, and he's like, man, I saw your new neighbor, and I overheard your neighbor talking, and they were talking about you. You know, that's that moment where you're like, oh, okay. And he began to express to me, he said, she called you a Bible thumper. I'm like, first of all, what? A Bible thumper? And I don't know why. But as we were singing today, I had no reason to share this story today. I began to think about our neighbor. And I got to be honest with you, I think I'm passing by a little bit. Because a Bible thumper doesn't describe someone who serves and loves. A Bible thumper describes someone who's just saying a lot of things. And so today, if you're like, Warren, I'm the passerby, welcome. There's things I need to move in. If we're going to serve Griffin until it looks like heaven, guess who has to step into me as well? Where are you passing by someone? As you go home today, where are you passing by? As we move forward this morning, we think about the person who stopped. I can't help but think about, as we move into a space of communion, the fact that Jesus stepped in for us.